Hey everybody, it's May, it's Stop the Bleed month. And so we think it's important to make sure that we talk about all these different items that we have at our disposal so we can stop the bleed. It's an important initiative, it's important that you know about it, it's important that you continue to train. And so we brought a couple of experts here with us. We're here at Sheepdog Response talking to some of A, my friends, B, some experts in the realm, and it's a real treat. So, and it's a chance to showcase some of these items and get the opportunity for you to see it and kind of build up the knowledge. So I got here with me Uriah. Uriah's an old army buddy of mine. Uriah, go ahead and introduce yourself so everybody knows who you're talking to.
Thanks, Matt. So Uriah Popp, I'm a director of category management for Safeguard Medical. I manage all of our massive hemorrhage items, our airway items, our hypothermia items, and our simulation products.
Yep. And Doc Simpson.
Hey, I'm Mike Simpson. I'm a physician. I'm a board-certified emergency medicine doctor. Also a former Special Forces medic. I am a trauma subject matter expert for Safeguard Medical.
Yeah, both of these guys are top-notch medics, both in the military realm and the civilian realm. Very relevant in the realm. You guys know me. I'm the director here at Sheepdog Response. I'm into all things training, but my first love is medicine. That's where I cut my teeth, is in medicine. And so these guys are here from Safeguard Medical, and they're going to show us some of the components. Many of these components we provide, and they got some simulation legs and arms here, so we can kind of delve in and look at some of these different things. So the first thing I notice when I look at these things, Uriah, is that the colors, the color-coded aspect of these things. Can you talk to us a little bit about what do the different color codes mean on the different things? I can notice that they're grouped in colors. Is that on purpose?
So yeah, so that's a systematic treatment tool. So that's the Rampart color-coded trauma treatment system. And you're exactly right. So I call it Rampart. I kind of came up with a little acronym. So it's a rapid association tool matching product for the appropriate response to trauma.
Zero chance I'll remember that, but that's cool.
So the cool, easy way it is, I say it's matching the right product for the right time at the right intervention.
That I can go with. Yeah, nice.
And so yeah, so basically, if you look at our product straight across the board, they align to the universal treatment algorithms. So either in the United States in military medicine, March is very familiar.
Yeah, March is what we teach, yep.
Yep, so massive hemorrhage, airway circulation, or respiration, circulation, and hypothermia. And then in Europe and a lot of other countries, they use CABCD. So they use the catastrophic hemorrhage, airway, breathing, circulation, and disability. But the color-coded system, what's important to note that it aligns with both of those algorithms.
Yeah. So in this case, red, you've got set up for massive hemorrhage for us in the March algorithm, right?
Correct.
So those products that are color-coded red, you know, when you go on, say if I went on Safeguard's site and I wanted to order stuff for my IFAC, I know everything that's in red is designed for the M part of March. That's for treating massive hemorrhage. On down to, you've got green for airway, blue for respirations, and on down the line, color-coded to make it nice and easy to make sure that they're doing it. I like how, I'm very big fan of how the packaging is done by Safeguard. I won't lie. One of the big reasons that we went with Safeguard to provide our medical gear is it's packaged smart, it's designed smart, and I feel like probably you're one of the last companies that's really doing innovative stuff. I feel like a lot of companies are just kind of resting on their laurels. They got the same thing, and over the years I've seen the quality kind of go down because they're getting it from different sources, where continually Safeguard, this stuff seems to be cutting edge, which I like, because I always like that about being in soft medicine, is the fact you got to get your hands on cutting edge stuff, and it has that feel to it. And it's true, because you're bringing items to market that are new and dynamic that people haven't, like the RAM pressure device and stuff that fits into categories that is filling gaps that I think people are ignoring. So I appreciate that you guys are doing that. So tell us a little bit about what you got in the massive hemorrhage category. What do you guys got?
So sure. So the first thing, kind of a staple of any tactical medical company, is your tourniquet. So we offer the tactical mechanical tourniquet. We actually have several tourniquets for those that like a stretch and wrap tourniquet. We offer the Soft-T, and we additionally offer the full stop tourniquet, which is another stretch and wrap tourniquet. But today I'll kind of briefly talk over the tactical and mechanical tourniquet, kind of stick to some of its key features, and kind of walk you through them about those. So the first thing you'll notice about the tactical mechanical tourniquet is that it's a full 2 inches wide. The next thing you'll notice is there's no internal band. So there's meanings when you pull slack, when you turn the windlass, you're pulling a full 2 inches of slack out of the tourniquet. You'll notice it has a speed buckle for entrapped lower leg applications. Additionally, it has 2 securing mechanisms. So it has Velcro and it has a friction buckle.
Yeah, that double pass friction buckle is key. There are a lot of tourniquets on the market that have a single pass, no friction. The problem is when you, I guess the pitfall is once you put the tourniquet on, and for some reason the end gets caught on something, which has happened, it gets pulled back to the buckle, it releases the tourniquet, but you still see the tourniquet on the limb, so it gives you a false sense of confidence that your tourniquet is in place and working, and you don't realize until, it could be minutes, or 30 or minutes or later that it hasn't been a tourniquet, it's just in place and giving you a false sense. So I love that it's got the friction buckle. I love that you guys have the quick detach. I swear it's the best quick detach in the industry. There's a couple on different models, but they're just not convenient. That thing goes on and off so fast. The TMT is the tourniquet I carry. After using many of the tourniquets, probably one of the reasons I first reached out to you guys and said, hey, this tourniquet, it slaps, as my daughter would say, and so it works really, really good. And I think it's built off of a lot of things. Like I said, like a lot of people stopped innovating. You guys kept finding stuff, and I think you've kind of reached the best solution. But talk to us a little bit about the width. Like what's important about the width? Why the 2 inches?
So the wider that a tourniquet is, Matt, the more the way the pressure distributes. That means you require less pressure. That means a couple of things. That means I don't have to crank it as hard. So as a user, it's easier for me to tighten it to the point that the bleeding stops. Yeah. Now, for the patient, that means less discomfort. Yeah. Because one thing that a lot of people don't realize is, we used to say this all the time in the soft community, a properly applied tourniquet will hurt, yeah. Period, end of story, yeah. Right? That's something you kind of can't get around, yeah. But you can control how much is it gonna hurt, sure. Right? Because if it is so painful for the patient, and we worry about this a lot more in the civilian world, what if this is applied at a mall, at a school, at an airport, somebody who's not familiar with that, if they're putting the tourniquet on and the patient's screaming, they might loosen it up. They might stop a little bit prematurely, and the patient might still be bleeding. So we recognize that it's going to be important for the user and for the patient to make it so that you can apply a little bit less pressure. And the increased width does that. Not only the increased width of the tourniquet as a whole, but Uriah mentioned the fact that when you tighten this tourniquet, the entire tourniquet is what tightens. Yeah. It's not a thin piece of cloth going in a channel in the middle of the tourniquet, because some of our competitors, and I won't mention any names, have tourniquets that have a thread basically that runs the length of the tourniquet. So when you're tightening it, you're not tightening the full length of the tourniquet. You're tightening a very, very small, about a 1/4 inch area in the center of that tourniquet. That means they need a lot more pressure. That means it's a lot more painful. That means it's a lot harder to use.
Yeah, I can tell from experience. I've probably had maybe thousands of tourniquets just in training put on me, and other operators giving it the full send, and you know it. You know the difference. You can feel the characteristic difference. But I like what you said, because for me, my chief audience is civilians, people who just want to protect themselves. Like military guys, they're going to go hard into the paint. They can tighten hard. But civilians do get apprehensive. They start to tighten that tourniquet, and they start to feel like, is this too tight? Is this not? That's why I like it. You get better pressures. You get better pressures from this with less effort, which is also nice, because I'm always thinking, when I think about tourniquets, it's not just about operators or guys who are big yoke guys who are having no trouble turning that windlass. I think of 8-year-olds who are trying to save somebody in their family, or people who don't have a lot of muscle mass or are trying to save somebody's life. You want to make it as easy for them as possible. So I love that about it. Thanks for explaining it. That's awesome. What else you got?
No, I was going to say that one thing that you mentioned is about innovating and simplifying tactical medicine. That's kind of a staple foundation of the company, is enabling all responders to preserve and save life in all environments.
Nice, I love it.
And so, and a lot of things I like to point out is just how easy it is to self-apply. Usually that's one of the things that people struggle with. And usually what I tell folks is this is 6 simple steps to application. Kind of a pro tip that I always tell people: if you're playing a tourniquet, regardless of which one you carry, if you locate your thumb right here on this time tab, you'll always index and pull the slack out in the appropriate direction. So proper steps to application is flick it out, circle it around the limb, separate the Velcro, up, out, and down in a ratcheting motion. You'll see I got out all that critical slack.
Yeah, I love
That's
when he talks
important.
about this critical slack. You want to get as much slack out of this as possible, like what he's saying.
And this is the most common failure point when people apply tourniquets, is they don't tighten it enough initially, and then they can't get enough when they're cracking down the
Exactly.
windlass.
I agree wholeheartedly. That's why I love the term critical slack. I picked it up from Uriah, and so I tell people that all the time. I'm like, that slack is critical. You got to get everybody out. Go ahead, continue. Sorry to interrupt.
So then, once you have there, turn the windlass. 1 to 2 turns. Once you remove all the critical slack, you're not fighting against the tourniquet. Secure the tail. There's an extra piece of Velcro right here, and then of course, like all, you want to record the timed application, and it's just that simple. Resetting the tourniquets. The other thing, proper gear storage is critical. Resetting this tourniquet is fairly simple, and I'll walk you through it real quick. So the key with this one is it has this arrow here. So if you pull this arrow up to the brown buckle there, you locate the clip to the top. All you do is wrap it around. And if you look, now I'm indexed appropriately again. I can store it in a loop in my MOLLE, and I quickly locate my thumb there, applying it to myself or to another person.
Yeah, if you can see it in this holder here, you can see how it is, how the tab is exposed. That way when you go for it, you get the tab. Nice. Love it. Love every bit about it. Love the TMT. Can you talk to us a little bit about the RAM and how that works with the TMT?
Sure.
I don't want to jump ahead, but that thing is
No, yeah,
calling
so
my name.
it's one of the things, I call it an undeniable advantage, right? In marketing and with things in devices, there's a lot of things that's tit for tat and opinion based.
Yep.
The one thing that I call the RAM is kind of I call it the undeniable advantage, right?
Okay.
It offers you a feature that others, they just don't offer, right? You got to improvise, and there's a lot of techniques, and not to go into that. But essentially, this is the RAM. So what it is, it has a couple of clips on it, and you'll see a pressure dome. And the way it's made is you just flex it, you put the bridge in your hand, and then you clip it into the tourniquet. And so now what you have is essentially you've created a point pressure device. And so why is that important? We'll get into hemostats probably here in a second or two, but everything requires downward pressure for some amount of time to essentially let your body build up a clot and create clot formation.
Yeah.
So what this does, we have a shoulder here, and I'll just kind of show it. So what it is an adjunct. It's one of the uses of it's a packing adjunct. So you would pack the wound to the source of bleeding like you would.
Yep.
And then you put the pressure head into the wound, and essentially you clip it. You're going to take out the slack, tighten it. All right. And then you're only turning the windlass just to remove any additional slack. So now what you have here is you have downward pressure being applied to you by an adjunct. So why is that important? It just freed up my hands. Normally, regardless of, again, the hemostat that you use, it's between 1 to 3 minutes of direct downward pressure. Now, I've reduced that time to what it takes me to apply this device. So now I can move on, I can do other life-saving techniques or interventions that I need to perform or task. I can put my weapon into operation. I can radio for help if I need to.
Yeah, this is all really important because when I teach in the course, especially when there's law enforcement officers or public servants in the course, I'll say, hey, every second you're holding pressure manually, you're not you're just a bandage. You're not doing your job, you're a bandage. You need to be out securing, taking care of stuff. So get a system that does that for you. That's what's great about the tourniquet. So this is just a system to retrofit your tourniquet for point pressure instead of circumferential pressure. Instead of stopping, you can focus that pressure. I love it. That's fantastic. So Uriah showed this to me the first time I saw it. We were in Vegas together, and he showed it to me. He gave me one. At the time, it hadn't been approved yet, so I got a peek at it. And everybody I showed between now or between then and now has just oohed and awed every time I showed them. But it's available now. I love that thing. It works great. That's the first time I've seen him do the full explanation of how it works. I've just been kind of rubbing my hands over this thing. So I'm really happy about it, that it's come to market and that it's available. I think it's great. It doesn't take up a lot of room. It should go in a full-fledged IFAC. I think it's a great device. Anything to add, Don?
No, the thing that I love about it, and especially, we're talking about Stop the Bleed Month.
Yeah.
When I think of Stop the Bleed Month, I'm always thinking of the worst case scenario, which is a mass casualty scenario.
Yeah.
So 1 to 3 minutes of me applying pressure over here is 1 to 3 minutes that another patient is not getting cared for,
that's somebody's life.
right? This also means if I get this on, what if it is only a single casualty? I get this on, I can put him in the back of my car and I can drive now,
Nice.
right? Because I can put both hands on the wheel,
Right.
they're in the back seat. I don't have to have a second person putting pressure on that. So it's so instrumental and so important for that, and I agree with you 100%. I think if what we have described as a complete quote unquote IFAC has changed over the years, and I think in 2023, if you're going to carry a complete IFAC, absolutely you need to have a TQ RAM or a similar device inside.
That's a good point. If your 2023 IFAC is the same IFAC you had even in 2020 or 2021, it's changed so much. Well, these guys are changing things dynamically, but there are a couple new things that you would want in there. Obviously, you need to go back and look at your gear. You should be checking it anyway, but medical gear that was fantastic 3 years ago is nearly obsolete now. So there's so much great new, easy to use stuff on the market, and so a lot of which we have here. So that's why I'm glad you guys are here to showcase it for us. All right, moving on. What else you got, Uriah?
So I got a couple of hemostatic products. So both of this is Chito Gauze and Celox Rapid. These are both chitosan-based hemostatics. Without getting too technical and geeky about it, basically they're made from a shellfish derivative, the sugar, the polysaccharide off of shellfish that's extracted off. And then processed. One thing that's important to note is people with shellfish allergies, it's safe to use this product with them because it's derived from the shell, not the meat of the shrimp. So we have two versions here. One's an impregnated, one's a coated. One has a radiopaque strip for those that are important to have that, and one does not.
That just means you can see it on X-ray. That's why if it gets packed in, the doctor will be able to see it on X-ray.
Yeah, because what you don't want to happen is you don't want to pack a wound and somehow it got missed, and maybe that wound gets closed up.
Yeah,
right?
that'd be bad.
And this eliminates.
I think everybody's heard like one of those horror stories about something that got left in a patient. That's really nice that they put the radiopaque strip on there. It's just so it shows up on X-ray and doesn't look like a big blood clot. Yeah, I like it.
So again, color-coded for easy identification in your kit. That's the important thing, that you want to provide yourself every advantage you have. This has an additive in there that creates a pseudo clot that helps with folks who can't clot on their own. So people who are drinking, older folks who are on medications that work against their ability to clot. So that's why it's a preferred hemostatic of choice for me. Regardless of which one you use, and it also works in a hypothermic patient, meaning a patient that's cold. Good fact about this, we want to go over a little bit of wound packing,
and then
we can take this off.
Yeah, that's great.
Maybe Doc can show us some techniques that he likes to use.
Yeah, so I love Celox Rapid. My individual IFAC that is on my gun belt has it.
Yep.
This is all of my SWAT operators are carrying it.
Yeah,
this
that's
is
what we
what
sell in our IFACs
this
too.
is
It
what
works
I'm
great.
keeping in my vehicle. It's just a great product. As Uriah mentioned, it's a chitosan based. So a lot of the competitor products out there are what they call a kaolin based, which is basically clay.
Yeah.
All right. So you're basically packing dirt into the wound. Rub dirt on it and walk away. So I guess for some people that still works.
Yeah.
One of my jobs at Safeguard, as one of the only physicians on staff, is I'm the one responsible for making sure that we're keeping up with evidence-based medicine. So all that data that's coming back from the field, what works and what doesn't work.
Yeah.
That's why I was so happy when we went with this as opposed to the other products that are out there.
Yeah, I remember when chitosan first hit the market, I got the opportunity to meet the guy who initially did the laboratory work and invented chitosan, and he showed us some of the data and like some of the stuff that and mind-blowing, absolutely mind-blowing. Like you said before, it's kind of just throwing spaghetti at the wall, see what sticks. This guy really put a lot of work into making a great product that really forms a clot, does a great job. Like if you don't know about hemostatic dressings, it's time to get smart because they're an amazing device and they're available just about everywhere. You can get them from Safeguard. They're great for humans. They're also great for pets. If you got pets, I recommend it. But I'll say this, and I'll let Doc go back into packing. here's my number one person that needs to hear about hemostatics, and that's hunters. If you're going to walk 20 miles out into the woods away from anywhere and climb a tree with a firearm, and you don't have a hemostatic or know how a hemostatic works, you're behind the curve. You need to start looking into that stuff. So for my hunters, you should definitely have a tourniquet. You should definitely have a hemostatic, and you should definitely have a blanket too. But we'll get into that later. So show us the goods.
You know, and a lot of the other competitor products depend on the patient's own ability to clot.
Yeah.
It just kind of augments that. And this does not.
Yeah.
And you notice Uriah called it a pseudo clot, right? We call it a pseudo clot because this is making the clot. It's only a real clot if your body makes it. This makes its own clot. So you can be completely devoid of clotting factor. This is still going to do the job.
It's fantastic.
Yeah. So the great thing about this, and there's a few different techniques that you'll see people teach as far as, I like to tuck it in my shirt, I like to throw it over my shoulder, I like to hand it to somebody else and have them feed it to me. To me, it's all pretty much the same, right? It's because to me, every time I throw it over my shoulder, it ends up kind of falling down anyway. Don't get too preoccupied with that. If it gets a little bit dirty, we're here to save the person's life because they're bleeding to death. They can get antibiotics later, right? The biggest training scar that I see people make, and the great thing about this is it kind of eliminates that, is they do this weird wrap thing that they like to do when they're packing the wound. That's really unnecessary. It takes a lot of time. The great thing about the width of this and just kind of the texture of it is right away when you pick it up, your brain tells you not to do that because it feels a lot more natural to just pack it right into the wound. And then there's a couple of different ways you can do it. Some people do the alternating, I'm going to pack one side, then the other side back and forth. Some people like to have one hand feed to the other and kind of hold it there and pack in. Both are completely acceptable. The important thing being that I'm packing it deep into the wound because I want to find the source of that bleeding.
Yeah, that's the most important thing. I say your initial pack when you go has to go to where the bleeding is. Identify where that is and get it right there. Start there and then fill in behind it. That
very first pack as you're going in, that's as my old drill instructor used to call it, your recon finger, right? So you're going in there and you're looking for the source of the bleeding because you want everything about it. Because as great as this is, right? As great as the chitosan is, it's not just the chemical reaction that's getting you that pseudoclot, it's also the mechanical, what we call tamponade, right? Which we all learned our first day in treating bleeding in medic school.
It's a twofer. So I get the pressure from the bandage filling the gap, and I also get the hemostatic agent in there, all working together. So honestly, as a soft medic, I feel like there's no bleed that I couldn't stop with just a hemostatic. But I have a lot of experience doing it, like packing. I'm not apprehensive about it. But if you haven't done this before, but you had to do it to save like a family member's life or a good friend's or even a stranger's life, A, make sure you protect yourself. B, you got to give it the full send. Find where that blood's coming from, pack it in there because like the fine doctor said, you can fix things with antibiotics, but not if they don't make it to the ER. They got to live to get to the ER. Once they get there, you get them there, they can get antibiotics and everything else they can fix.
If they bleed to death here, it's not.
You never want to let anybody die for lack of trying, that's for sure.
Once you have the wound cavity completely filled, right, you can, it's kind of dealer's choice at this point. You can pack everything on top and do it like that. Some people prefer to kind of cut it off, especially if is this a mass casualty scenario? I'm limited on supplies. It really doesn't matter which way you choose to do it.
And the Solox tears nicely too. You can split it.
It does.
So,
it's a lot easier to tear than some of the other stuff out there. You see
that's when I think one of the biggest benefits to it is like the Solox tears quite easily. So if you have to use it in somewhere else,
multiple wounds on the same.
So multiple wounds on the same patient.
I've got more to use. I've got another wound over here. I can use it very easily. Now I can either, if I forgot to bring my TQ ram, I'm doing manual pressure for about a minute. If I've got the TQ ram, I'm going to put it on. And I don't put it on just for the minute and then take it off, right? Because it's not. This isn't like a cake in the oven. You're not checking to see if it's done. You want to leave that pressure on because just because we have a clot now doesn't mean
we can't lose it or pull it out.
We're going to move this patient, right? A lot of things hemodynamically are going to change with this patient. They might get an adrenaline surge. Their blood pressure might go up.
Hopefully.
A lot of different things could happen. So always want to leave that pressure in place. And that's another reason that I love the TQ RAM because, it used to be, unfortunately, we were teaching medics, pressure. At that time, I think we were teaching 3 to 5 minutes. And then a lot of times they were acting like it was calf rope and they just put up their hands and they'd walk away.
Yeah.
And that's a problem because that clot has the potential to break up, and you're also not monitoring it properly.
Yeah, I can tell you from experience, this is something that happens to a medic only once in their career. One time you'll turn your head and you look back and realize I should have had somebody put a hand there or should have put something there, and then it never happens to you again. You only get fooled once on that one. Hopefully nobody's life is on the line when it happens. But yeah, that's one of those things where I never give the benefit of doubt to a bandage. I make sure I'm constantly attentive to it. That's what's nice about these hands-free devices that let you do that.
Speaking of manual pressure, if you do get stuck in that situation, that's, to jump back on one of the great things about the color-coded Rampart system is if I've got my hands here and I need something, I forgot to unpack. I was so busy worrying about packing the wound, I forgot to unpack my TQ RAM. Mm-hmm. You can direct somebody without moving your hands. No, not that. No, the red package. The red package.
Yeah, nice.
So nobody has, because if I told somebody who'd never seen a TQ RAM, hand me the TQ RAM.
Yeah, they're not gonna.
They have no idea what they're doing. Yeah. But if I can just say, you know what, bring everything red out of my bag right here.
Beautiful.
And I'll just grab it.
I love it. All right, what else you got? So great hemostatics. We talked about them. Can't advocate enough you having a hemostatic. In this day and age, they are so good, so affordable, and so easy to pack. It's kind of shameful if you don't have one. I mean, like, you really need to get on board if you don't know about them. Get smart. It won't break the bank. You should have it. It's absolutely a must to have. I like to say, I already talked about hunters and people with kids, but kids in sports, forget about it. Like, if I took my daughter to the ER every time she got a bad cut, they probably called CPS on me a long time ago. But like, get good at treating wounds, and having this stuff on hand is the way to do it. Of course, if it's serious, take them to the hospital.
And with warmer weather coming, boaters, you absolutely need to have.
Yeah, I did a lot of classes when I was in Florida for guys who got prop strikes, because getting in and out of the water for divers is a big thing. People backing up boats and getting struck by pops. Yeah, don't go out on the water without a tourniquet. It's a must-have. Or falling on a boat. A lot of people lose their footing on boat, and that happens. So a lot of reasons to get cut, not a lot of tools to fix it. All right, what else you got?
So next we'll go with our color code green. So the next thing we have here is the pre-lubricated nasal airway. Some of the magic in this is actually in the name. It's actually pre-lubricated. So for those that aren't familiar with NPAs, to pass them in the nasal passage so that you don't cause bleeding, you want to pre-lubricate these things and to aid and ease an insertion. So our nasal trumpet comes pre-lubricated.
That's the best.
Additionally, it has a securing flange, and which also serves as a bevel indicator. So I said trumpet, but it's a nasal airway. But essentially, a lot of them are circle design.
Yeah, the old circle ones everybody used to call nasal trumpets.
Yeah, and what becomes problematic with that is you don't know where the bevel is. So why is it important to know where the bevel is? And so the bevel is essentially going down the nasal passage and meant to sit and go midline. Because if it's oriented in this direction, then it can be against the soft tissue in the back of the airway. And so what these do is they go and sit beyond the base of the tongue to create a passage for air. And you know that once you insert it, if the bevel's located to the edge of the face, then my bevel, or if the securing flange is located next to my face, then the bevel's in the proper orientation. The other thing, it's made of medical grade silicone. Important fact. And so storage of this thing is you can fold it up, stick it in loop, and it retains no memory. It'll bounce back. A lot of the other products on the market made of PVC and other types of materials, they'll actually maintain memory. And then when you go to open them up and use them, then it doesn't have a passage, and they'll be permanently kinked and things like that.
Yeah, there's also no medic, especially in the soft community, that hasn't opened their bag up and realized that one of those NPAs had pressure on it, and now it's kinked and almost useless. That's another thing is especially on this one. I saw nasal trumpets through decades of soft medicine really not change much. Frankly, they haven't changed much since probably the 60s or 70s. They're generally the same thing. Same material, same design, they work good enough. But again, Safeguard Medical says, hey, there's a way to make this even easier for everybody to be able to use. And they throw in these additional, they're small things, but they're the right things, meaning it won't retain any kind of memory. And so it'll always be rigid enough to create an airway and always be open. That's money. And then on this particular one, I love that it's pre-lubricated. I love in the pack. You can see how I can, here's some AMSR for you guys, ASMR, is that how you say? But I love that it moves in there. You can see there's just enough lubricant in there. It's going to slide in there easily. but not so much that it's going to be gooey in your hands, which used to be the case. You used to have to squirt a bunch of lubricant on it, and then it would just be a mess.
Yeah, the fact that it doesn't have memory to me is the most important feature
That's
of the
fantastic.
device. Because
Yeah.
I would say to everybody there, and I know a lot of the people who follow you and are probably watching this video probably already have an IFAC at home, and I would
Yeah.
say all of you stop what you're doing right now, pause
Yeah.
this, go open up your IFAC, pull out the nasal airway that you have, and I guarantee it's folded up like this,
Yep.
and you're going to unfold it, and there's going to be a nice kink here. Guess how much air can pass? 2 oxygen molecules holding hands
Yeah.
can probably get through that kink.
Yeah.
That's probably about
I remember when they were in the course, they gave us a little lesson in this. They had us take the end of a pin off and try to breathe through the end of a pin for a minute, and like nobody could make it. You can't say, So you got to make sure you have enough of a lumen in there, enough of an aperture for enough air to get through, and it does. You can drink air through one of these things, but if that passage is small, it can be problematic. And again, give you that false sense of confidence. Like I've established the airway, but the person is still suffocating because there's just not enough air.
Yeah, and this is it's just another thing. Everybody needs to be checking their gear all the time anyway,
Yeah.
but this is just one less thing to worry about.
Yeah, we'll make that the resounding message for Stop the Bleed Month. I know it's Stop the Bleed. We're talking about airway. We're talking about a lot of equipment, but yeah, just like with go back and look at your IFAC for tourniquet, for hemostat, definitely go back and look for this NPA. Make sure you've got a good NPA that's in good working order. If you want to make a good investment, get one like this, a more modern one that like the one Safeguard provides.
Another thing I'd like to point out, Matt, about the innovation at Safeguard is if you look at most of the NPAs that are out there, what they did is they took the same exact NPA that you'll find on a shelf in a hospital utility room, and they just put that in an IFAC for the field.
Yeah.
Well, if you look at a lot of that
Right.
packaging, it's plastic on one side,
Yeah.
it's paper on the other.
That's right.
Right? That means moisture gets
Yeah,
through
everything.
it. That means it breaks down. Okay. Ours is built. This is built to be an individually packaged pre-hospital device that's going to withstand the rigors of you being on the range, you going and deploying somewhere, you carrying it on patrol every day.
Yeah.
It's not, we haven't repurposed something that was made for hospital use and try to push it off on people as a pre-hospital device. This was made specifically for you to carry for field use.
That thing is money. I love it.